Gold. Unfortunately, there's really nothing to add. You can see we're in this consolidation phase. Well, we're consolidating the move to the downside and holding perfectly from the 112.04 support up to the first resistance at 12.17.19. So if you've scalped that high teen area, that's worked, although you're probably holding long because I've told you to. The stochastics is starting to turn positive. You know about this 13-year trend line, I think it is. Let me just check I've got that right. I think it goes back to 2005 anyway, if I remember correctly. There we go, 2005, yeah. So we're holding that trend line, which I do think means we will eventually head higher. We've held it pretty well. We've got a little bit of a doji there. Doji sort of showing indecision, which might mean the bulls starting to gain control on the weekly chart. We're really oversold on the weekly chart. You've got to be long. You've got to be long with maybe a stop below 11.90, because if this works, the upside potential is huge. Get through the teens, we're up to 12, we're up into the high 12.20 area, and then we're heading for 12.40. So yeah, there's good upside if we can just get above 12.20. The silver chart does confuse the issue slightly because we've traded below the 200-month moving average, which isn't very positive, and we've got the trend line going back to 2008, so that's a 10-year trend line, and we're just a little bit below the trend line, but it wouldn't take much for us to reverse back above the mid $15 area, and suddenly it all turns bullish again. The daily chart will just emphasize the fact that we are trading sideways, and this doesn't give us any indication of what's going to happen in the future at all, does it? Up one day, down the next, just sideways with nothing. Hopefully it's a base building exercise, and we will push higher to confirm the fact that gold and silver are going to go up. But there's nothing I can do until we break either way. Crude looks quite negative to me, but we had a bounce back on Friday, so it did catch me out a little bit. This chart doesn't really tell me an awful lot. If I had to put a trade on, I'd probably sell it. I do think it looks more negative than positive, but it's just been, well, jumping around really. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Certainly the monthly chart doesn't show much. Let me have a quick look at the weekly chart in case it tells me anything more. Not really. Oh, that's Bitcoin. That's wrong. Hold on a second. No, not much going on the weekly chart. Anyway, if we get into the sort of 69.20, 69.50 area, that looks like the best trade at the moment, the best resistance to sell. Other than that, it's a bit of a muddle, and I don't have any strong feelings on oil. But as I say, if I had to sell it, if I had to trade it, I would probably sell it. E-mini S&P. So I was looking for the trend line up here in the low 28.60 area to hold, even though that shows 28.68. It did hold. 28.64.66 was my sell level. It did work. Traded sideways for a couple of days. Finally on Friday, the shorts paid off as we dipped down as far as 28.26. Broke support that I didn't even expect to be broken, actually. I think that was 24. Yeah, around the 28.40 area seemed like good support, but worries over Turkey seem to have pushed the market lower. So the question is this a huge double top pattern which has got seriously negative implications in the longer term? It could be. We've got a doji here on the weekly chart, which is not the most positive candle. It's also not the most negative candle. It shows a bit of indecision, but that's not what you would expect in a bull trend. So the fact that we've got that does indicate that bulls are unsure. We're very overbought on the weekly chart. There's not a huge bearish case here unless you do believe that's a double top, and it certainly could be. Of course, we don't know until the market actually turns lower. So if you're short, and I am short, I think it looks okay. I'm happy to be holding shorts. We'll need to break through 28.26, 28.23 for the next sell signal. Now the problem is neither the Nasdaq nor the Dow Jones, this is the Dow Jones chart, weekly chart, are showing any particular signs of concern. What I mean is there's nothing particularly bearish on either of those charts to back up the double top in the S&P. So we are overdue for a correction. Maybe that's all it will be. Maybe we'll see a little bit to the downside, and then worries over Turkey will subside and the buyers will come back in. I'd love to tell you that there was a huge sell signal, get short, we're going to crash, but doesn't look like it, to be honest. Of all the stock markets that I do monitor, the DAX looks the most negative, and I have talked about this potential head and shoulders top before. We've got the head as a double top, which is always a little bit more negative. Right shoulder here, of course. Now then, the neckline is not for a long way down, so we'd have to drop, as you probably remember, another 1,000 points before we'd even be looking at the neckline. But if we do break below, this is the weekly chart by the way, if we do break below this trend line going back to the end of March, then that would be significant at least. That would around the 12,280 area. And we've also got the 100-week moving average around 12,235. So we start breaking below 12,200. That's certainly going to be negative for the DAX, although we have to see what happens with the neckline. On the daily chart, this is just a bag of nothingness, really. Moving averages is heading sideways. We couldn't break the 200-day moving average. We broke back below the 100-day moving average, and then we collapsed on Friday, obviously, over those Turkish worries, maybe some trade war worries as well. So yeah, the DAX chart is probably the most negative looking chart.